for the hour, plus Brooke Pryor and Courtney Cronin, who I was just talking about. They're going to join us later on in the show. But first, guys, training camp is here. Can you smell it in the air? I can. All right, Seahawks rookies arriving today. Look at that. There they are. Walking into the facility, including their first-round pick, Jadarian Price, reporting a new group of young players getting their first taste of the NFL. So Price will be looking to follow a run of successful early-round draft picks by the Seahawks in recent years, that foundation that built a Super Bowl winning team. Take a look at these guys in the last 4 years. Kenneth Walker and Jackson Smith-Njigba were the top producers on offense last season, while Devin Witherspoon and Nicky Manwari were key contributors on a defense that helped lead Seattle to the Super Bowl. Now, Price is going to be replacing Walker as he left for the Chiefs in free agency. Big shoes to fill, right? Or Crocs, if you ask Kenneth Walker, because he wears Crocs.
Yeah.
How do you see Jadarian Price being utilized, Ben, in this Seattle offense?
On all three downs, right? I mean, this coaching staff has spoken a lot about, all right, George Kalani is going to be our third down back. It's going to be a timeshare. It doesn't pass the sniff test to me. First-round running back is a first-round running back. You want to get that guy the football. And now Price is an interesting cat because in college he was splitting time with Jeremiah Love. And so in his last 2 seasons at Notre Dame, he never averaged more than 10 touches per game. It's a warranted question, what can this guy be with a full menu of touches? At the same time, though, he wasn't like a scat back. He wasn't like only passing downs. They would use him on 1st and 10 in pass protection. He has all the skills. We just haven't seen it at volume. Now, the Seahawks were not a good running team last year, and they're expecting a first-round rookie running back to step in and at least contribute as a ball carrier, if not be the primary guy. So very high expectations for a guy who we think can do it as a 3-down back, but we haven't seen it yet.
I feel like sometimes the NFL likes it more a little bit if you didn't get your legs worn down.
A lot of treads left on the tires, absolutely.
Exactly. Bill, how important will it be for Price to make it an immediate impact like Ben's talking about here?
Yeah, it's going to be essential because we know Sam Darnold is not the most consistent of quarterbacks. When he's hot, Sam Darnold looks great, but they won 6 games last year where Sam Darnold had a QBR of 40 or less. And unsurprisingly, they did that by running the football well in those games. Averaged 131 yards per game in those 6 victories on the ground, averaged nearly 5 yards per carry, 21 rushes of 10 yards or more. So we need to see that running game come into play in the days where Sam Darnold does not play well as a passer, where they need to kind of grind out games, win a closer contest. And Jadarian Price, because of the Charbonnet injury, is going to have to step in from day one and either be a 3-down back, like Ben said, or at least be the focal point of the rotation in Seattle. That's going to be an essential piece for them, because remember, this offense is going through a lot of changes. Clint Kubiak's no longer there. They're going to have to find new pieces in the running game. That's going to be a really evolving offense early on in 2026.
Yeah, the other thing, too, is when you look around the division, it's a tough division. And a lot of these teams in the NFC West just keep getting better. So Mike McDonald was actually asked about that earlier this week. This is what he had to say, his reaction to new additions around the division. He said it probably feels like that's what's best for their teams and what they need to do, and that's good. When it's time to play those guys, we'll be ready and put together a game plan and go rock and roll. Yeah, I don't care. Don't care. If you start worrying about that, what everybody else is doing, it's just mentally taxing. All right, so you get the gist. Mike McDonald, he's playing it very cool. Tim, should he be worried about the rest of the NFC West, specifically the Rams with all their additions?
Yeah. Listen, what he's saying is coach speak, but also true. You know, you can't. Look, it does you no good to sit there and look around at who everybody else is signing and worry about that type of thing. You know, that being said, every team has an eye on teams in their division, especially teams that have been the best in their division. So, look, that's also the reality of it. And he's right. They will have a plan. But make no mistake about it. With Myles Garrett going to the Rams, that's a problem. He's a massive difference maker at a position that is a difference-making position. And now he's going to be on a team that's got a very good offense, so the ability to have opportunities to close out games, which really he hasn't had as many of those chances in his time in Cleveland, I think changes things. So, no, you can't worry about it. You can't be uber focused on that, but it does matter, which is why, kind of as the guys were saying, But they better have gotten it right on Jadarian Price because he probably is going to have to play a significant role for them just, all season long, but certainly in their division.
Guys, just one time I want a coach to be like, you know what? I'm really worried. Like, I don't know what we're going to do. Myles Garrett, apparently. Aaron Donald's coming back. Like, I am so scared. Nobody would ever do it, but it'd be really funny. It'd be great offseason fodder. All right, let's pivot to a team without recent postseason success. The Bills fans don't like to hear this, but hey, this could be your year. They've had their share of playoff heartbreak. There was the instant classic in 2021 where Gabe Davis scored 4 times, but Patrick Mahomes tied it with that 13-second drive, won it in overtime. We all remember that. Also, the AFC title game in 2024, Allen led a double-digit comeback, but while trailing on 4th down at the 2-minute warning, that heave to Dalton Kincaid fell incomplete. Buffalo eliminated by the Chiefs 4 times in a 5-season span. I mean, the Chiefs have just stood in their way. Then last year in Denver, despite 5 turnovers and a controversial interception call, the Bills forced overtime but fell short yet again. Josh Allen often becomes the focus, but here is Bills star tackle Dion Dawkins.
It seems like they
All right, tell him, Dion. I love it. Bill Dawkins is saying that Josh Allen's done enough. If that's the case, where does this team as a whole need to improve?
The pass rush is where I would look. That has been lacking in their playoff losses. During the regular season, over the past 5 years, pass rush for Buffalo, pretty good. Sack rate just under 7%. That's the 7th best rate in football. In the postseason, in those 5 losses over the last 5 years, 2.5% sack rate. That is not going to hold up. And Mahomes, maybe you say, hey, he's so good at avoiding sacks. Bo Nix in the postseason last year, 46 pass attempts in that game against the Bills, 0 sacks for the Buffalo defense. And some of this is on the coaching staff that's now departed under Sean McDermott. Some of it is the guys Brandon Beane's brought in. Von Miller was their big kind of over-the-top addition. That didn't land. Last year it was Joey Bosa. All Joey Bosa did in that game was take a truly insane roughing the passer penalty in overtime. They need that guy to step up. Whoever it is in 2026, whether it's Gregory Rousseau, Ed Oliver, they need a pass rusher to make a difference there in those postseason games.
Yeah, or it can be schematic, right? Because Jim Leonard's the new DC there replacing Sean McDermott. And McDermott was all 4-down rush, zone coverage behind, pretty, simple bread and butter. Leonard has the college background, right? We're talking simulated pressures, right? We're talking the ability to manufacture pressure from different angles. And he spent the last 2 years with Vance Joseph there in Denver. Vance Joseph sends the heat, right? Especially in the postseason, they'll send bodies. So that postseason disappearance of the pass rush has been the kind of the secret underlying issue underneath all the Josh Allen narratives. You heard Dion Dawkins say, Cook needs to be better, Dalton needs to be better, Joe Brady. No name for the defense there, and that was supposed to be the calling card for Sean McDermott, but it fell behind on those best offensive lines in the postseason one too many times. So if there's going to be a one domino difference maker that gets the Bills over the hump, it'll be a wonderful game by the pass rush under Jim Leonard in this postseason.
Yeah, I love it. And these are specific things to look for, right, Tim? But a little bigger picture, when you have a team that's been this good for so long, I mean, they've been right there. We just showed it. It's literally been like the Chiefs and then last year Denver standing in their way. How do you handle the pressure?
I think it's the difficult part about this, Laura, because it's almost like the regular season becomes a formality. You look at some of these teams, well, it was, been the Ravens in years past where they win 12 or 14 games. No one cares. Inside the organization, fan base, around the league, it's like, yeah, that's great. But what about the postseason? Because that's been when you get into the postseason, now all of a sudden the magnitude, basically all of the pressure gets pushed to right then. And so, I mentioned it with the Ravens. I was with the Eagles in the early 2000s, and it was like, hey, they'd been to the NFC Championship game, I think three or four times in the prior seasons, and couldn't beat the Rams. And it was like, you know what? Let's just get the game at the Vet rather than have to go play the greatest show on turf in St. Louis. Well, so the regular season was just like, you just were waiting for the postseason to come. Well, sure enough, home field advantage at the Vet, ended up playing Tampa. I can just tell you that the pressure that felt like it was on that team, because it was like nothing really up until that point mattered, because this was the hump that they had to get over. It just, it changes things. And I would just say for the Bills, what's scary about that is you're doing it with now a first-year head coach, which, I think is a pretty tall task.
You want the absolute worst Bills playoff stat in history, just the most brutal one?
I'm scared, but
they've won a
give it to
playoff
us.
game in 6 consecutive years, all right? That's only happened 3 times previous in the Super Bowl era. All 3 of those teams won 3 Super Bowls apiece. The Bills didn't appear in a single one. So you talk about getting so close, past the wild card round into the divisional round and not even appearing in the big game is brutal.
All right, on behalf of Ben, I apologize to all Bills fans.
They've heard that one from me before.
I've heard that one from you. But I'm glad you said it. And either way, it does speak to the pressure that we're all talking about here. Joe Brady has a lot of that on his shoulders, but so does Josh Allen. We're just getting started on NFL Live. Glad you're with us on this win the AFC North last season, despite some glaring issues on offense. Their wide receivers ranked bottom 4 in the league last season in receptions and yards. DK Metcalf led the way with 850 yards and 6 touchdowns, while the rest of the position barely matched those numbers, right? Pittsburgh went out and acquired Michael Pittman Jr., big get, and drafted Jeremy Bernard in the offseason. Jeremy Bernard, by the way, I think is going to be excellent in this offense. In a new ESPN.com article, our Steelers reporter Brooke Pryor takes us inside a revamped wide receiver room and a big expectations. Brooke with the byline, and now she's right here. Brooke, so glad to have you with us. Pittsburgh made some changes to that room, the receiver room specifically this offseason. How different would you say this group is compared to last year?
Yeah, Laura, it's a lot different. That's because they have quality depth, and that's a thing that they didn't have last season, especially late last season when they were leaning on guys like Adam Thielen and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who were not part of the team when that started, when the season started. Adding Michael Pittman Jr., huge, because not only is he a veteran and reliable, he's also incredibly versatile. He is a big body. He can block. He can catch out of a number of different positions. That was one thing that he stressed to us, that he's lined up all over the field. Also something that Jeremy Bernard did at Alabama.
Yeah.
And I think the real X factor here is going to be Roman Wilson. He's a guy that could not get on the field late in the season, not because he was hurt, but because he was a healthy scratch, because he did not have the trust of Aaron Rodgers the way that Rodgers trusted some of those other veteran guys. So if he can develop and be versatile, which is what Mike McCarthy wants, and Mike McCarthy wants a really strong wide receiver core. When he was the head coach of the Cowboys, those receivers led the league in receptions 4 times. The Steelers group has not done that recently.
All right, so Roman Wilson has somehow figured out how to get Aaron Rodgers' trust like in the offseason. That's what we're assuming.
They were standing beside each other on that team bonding trip. So he trusts him enough to stand beside him
in a great
in the
outfit.
Wild West.
Exactly. Bill, do you like the additions in this Pittsburgh offense?
There's something missing here. And I was really hoping they were going to get some more explosive stuff downfield in their additions this offseason. Michael Pittman's a good player, and he fits what Aaron Rodgers already wants to do, which is get the ball out quick, avoid hits, and throw short and let his receivers do the work after the catch. He was 60th out of 68 receivers in air yards per target last year, but there's just not the big plays downfield in this passing attack. They had just 16 deep completions all season. That was tied for 27th in the NFL. And some of that is Rodgers not wanting to hold on to the ball for too long, but some of that is, to Brooke's point, they were playing 2021 players from your fantasy football team over guys like Roman Wilson late in the season because Aaron Rodgers didn't trust his speedier options. So whether it's Jeremy Bernard, whether it's Wilson, I really want to see someone, a younger, explosive receiver, kind of break in and be the third option in this offense as the year goes along.
Yeah, I guess theory would be if you have better other receivers, then DK Metcalf can fill more of that role, right? Where you can then increase DK Metcalf's air yards per target, use him more as the field stretcher, which I'm kind of there with. But again, I think Rodgers is the limiting factor, right? Rodgers' inability to push the ball down the field, he can't really extend the plays. I think that they're turning into the skid when you have, as Bill says, those receivers who operate more closer to the line of scrimmage. The Rodgers stat from last year that's stunning among them all is that 65% of his yards came after the catch. It's the most for any quarterback this century, right? I mean, the inability, it's a fact that you can't push the ball down the field and you have to throw the ball quickly. He doesn't want to hold on to it because he hates getting pressure and he doesn't want to take hits at this stage in his career. And so when you have Pittman and Bernard, guys who can win in the short areas and then create after the catch, you're hoping to find explosives, not with those deep targets that Bill's looking for, but with shallow targets and then yards after the catch.
Yeah, I mentioned that I thought specifically Jeremy Bernard was especially suited for this. He's so tough after the